What's up, girlfriends? Welcome back. Today we're taking a step-by-step germination tutorial just a step further by covering the 3 most common germination methods and putting them into a side-by-side comparison to determine which one is most effective. We're also going to take a look at the strains that I chose for my next grow and why. So spark up and let's grow. Starting off with our strains, we have Blimber's Bubblegum Sherbet. This is a 70-30 indica hybrid, meaning it's a 70% indica and 30% sativa hybrid strain that has an average THC content of 30 to 32%. I chose this strain because it's characterized by a euphoric onset from its sativa traits. It's supposed to be uplifting and enhancing creativity, and as the experience continues, the indica effects take over for a more relaxing experience and sedative on the body. This seems like a perfect strain to incorporate to my nighttime routine because after a nice boost of creativity, to be cradled to sleep by this indica hybrid honestly sounds
sensational.
Caryophyllene is the predominant terpene in this strain. This spicy peppery terp is known to reduce anxiety and depression as well as induce deep relaxation. Myrcene is the other predominant terp, also associated with deep relaxation and pain relief, but most commonly known for the couch lock effects. Next up, we have our Royal Queen and Tyson collab Dynamite Diesel. This is a 65-35 indica hybrid strain as well with an average of 22% THC content. It's a cross of Sour Diesel and Skywalker OG that I'm growing now for the second time. So the first time it had such a crazy nose. It was super gassy, orange musky notes that tickled your brain as soon as you opened up the tent. And the effects of the strain were starting off relaxing and grounding, but they quickly turned into a fusion of creative energy and thoughts that had you wrapping hooks to your boo. A solid strain for a day high or a nighttime high. It's exactly what I expect out of a hybrid. This strain has a little bit more complex terpene profile consisting of myrcene that promotes deep relaxation with sedative muscle relaxing effects, some limonene that enhances mood and relieves stress while adding that citrusy taste, has some caryophyllene that provides anti-inflammatory and pain-relieving properties, some pinene that supports respiratory function and may counteract THC-related memory issues.
Dude, where's my car? Where's your car, dude?
And linalool, which has a calming anti-anxiety properties with a soothing floral aroma. And last but certainly not least is our Dutch Passion Strawberry Cough. This is a 75-25 sativa hybrid that's widely known for its easy growth in comparison to its other sativa counterparts. It has an average THC content of 15 to 20%, and the strain hits with a boost of creative energy and flow that elevates your mood for an artistic task or a social night out. It has the highest content of beta-myrcene, the terpene that's found in mangoes, and it's believed to enhance the absorption and as a result the effects of THC. The other predominant terpenes are alpha-pinene and limonene.
Okay then, let's move along.
Alright, let's start off going over our germination methods and everything that you're going to need for each of these, starting with the water method. For this, you're going to need the least amount of things. All you're going to need is your seeds, a shot glass, and some purified water. Once you have what you need, the first thing that you want to do is make sure that your hands and equipment are clean. If you have gloves, wear them now because this is going to reduce your chance of infecting your seeds or seedlings and increase your chances of germination. Next up, we want to go ahead and fill our shot glass with our water.
We're here to fuck shit up.
Alright, once you have your glass filled up, the next thing you're going to want to do is put in your seeds. Now for this process specifically, I'm going to be using seeds from unknown origin. I got these given to me from a buddy. I don't really know what they are. I don't really know where they came from. But since this is my least preferred germination method and the one that I found to be the least successful, I don't want to sacrifice any of my other seeds. So these are going to go in here for the sake of this experiment. We're going to go ahead and toss these in here. And as you can see that there was that one that sunk straight to the bottom. Right now it's hard to tell if that's a good thing or a bad thing. This could mean that the seed is mature, healthy, and viable. It can mean that it has less air inside, or it can mean that it's old or not viable. In reality, only time is going to tell for this one. Alright, and with our seeds submerged, we're going to go ahead and move into our split Mars Hydro 2x4 for storage. We have our germination dome and seedling mat, which I'm going to be using to ensure that we have optimal conditions. And I'm going to show you how to use this heat mat. This is our VivoSun seedling heat mat. This came in a pretty sweet bundle with the germination dome and the lights that you saw just a second ago, and it's super simple to use. So this is not an absolute necessity, but if you are using the paper towel method, you want to break up that heat from being in direct contact with the seeds. So you want to use a little tray like this one. And like this, the heat mat's going to provide gentle, consistent warmth, helping your seeds sprout faster and more reliably. Now with your tray on there and plugged in, all you want to do is set the temperature. Optimal temperature for your seedlings is going to be between 70 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit or 21 to 27 degrees Celsius. And this is going to promote the optimal range for germination. Alright, for the final step for this method, you want to then place them in a dark, warm place. Right here, we're going to use our germination dome and seedling mat. You want to check on them every 24 hours. Within the first 24 hours, your seeds are probably going to sink to the bottom. And within about 72 hours, they should sprout a taproot. With that done, we can go over some pros and cons for this method. I would say some pros for this is that it's simple and easy. It requires a minimum tools and effort. You can get a pretty quick germination. It can speed up the process because the water softens the shell. So a lot of times you'll have it pop overnight. It'll increase your germination rate because you're going to be able to see which seeds are good or bad. Typically, whether or not they float can indicate, but that's not guaranteed. But ultimately, either will or won't sprout a taproot. Now, I'll say that the cons for this one outweigh the pros because overall I believe this method is the least effective, just because most of the time that I've used it, it didn't really work for me. Not to mention cannabis is not an aquatic plant, so it doesn't even make sense to put them in water. Anyways, with this method you can risk drowning. If the seed's left in water for too long, it can rot or drown. You have no control over the moisture levels, and too much moisture can be a problem, or too little as well. You have a lack of airflow, and this lack of airflow is going to cause the taproot to develop less robustly, and it's going to produce a weak seedling. But if you have a different opinion about this method, please let me know in the comments. I've never met anyone in real life that does this and likes it. Next up, we got the paper towel method. This one's going to be relatively simple, though it's a little bit more complex than the other one because it requires a couple different variables. But what you're going to need is pretty simple. For this, you're going to need our seeds. I'm going to be using some blueberry fem freebies that I got from North Atlantic Seed Co. A Ziploc bag. You're going to need your paper towels, a sanitized plate, and some water. First thing we want to do for this method, making sure that our plate is sterile and our hands are clean, we want to dump our seeds on the paper towels that are sitting on the plate. We want to give them a little bit of distance so they don't touch each other when those taproots come out, don't tangle into each other or cause any issues. Now, a lot of people like to use that water germination method first. They let the seeds sink in the water overnight and then do this method. I'm going to go ahead and skip that overall. Like I said, I don't like that method to begin with. So I'm going to go ahead and pour the water directly on the seeds from here. You want to dampen the paper towel and you do want it to be wet, just not soaked. So it's just going to be a little bit of water that you're going to be adding here. And with that water, you want to fold up the paper towel, making sure that it all soaks evenly. So you want to go ahead and leave them like this. That way you can see them without disrupting them. You'll be able to see through here if those taproots have formed. With a nice damp and neatly folded paper towel, you can go ahead and put that into your Ziploc bag to preserve the moisture and humidity. If the bag seems to be losing moisture, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and use a little sprayer bottle. Spray that up. Your taproot should then sprout about 72 hours after. Be patient with this one and pay close attention because leaving these in the bag for too long can make the taproot sprout through the paper towel, and you do not want that because it will break off when you try to get it out. There's pros and cons to this one as well. The pros to this include easy monitoring. You can see the seeds sprout. You don't have to touch them too much. You have a pretty high success rate because you'll be able to tell off rip which seeds are not going to make it. You have a low risk of drowning because you can control the moisture level in this. Now the cons include some similarities with the other one. We have limited airflow. The lack of oxygen, like I said, can potentially stunt the root growth or the taproot growth. And we also have the opposite of what the last method have. We can risk drying out. If you let this paper towel dry out and doesn't get the right amount of moisture, we can fail to germinate. So we want to make sure that we keep this nice and moist and stored in the proper environment, checking on it every 24 hours and waiting for those taproots to come out. Once those taproots come out, you're going to be good to go ahead and transfer that into your soil, which brings us to our last method, planting directly in the soil.
All right, the last method is the simplest, the most logical, and my personal favorite, and this is planting the seed directly into the medium. In this case, our medium is going to be soil, so needless to say, this process is going to include using soil. We got our Coastal Maine Stonington blend. This is a good soil for seedlings because it's rich, organic. It provides optimal aeration, it has good moisture retention, and has essential nutrients to promote health and vigorous root growth, especially for these like early stages. We're obviously going to need our seeds. We're gonna need our pots, or you can use solo cups. Done that too, works great. If you use solo cups, just make sure you punch holes in the bottom of them so you can have some proper drainage. You wanna have your water, and you also wanna have some Ziploc baggies. All right, so the first thing we wanna do here is prepare the soil. We wanna make sure that the soil is thoroughly and evenly moist. So this is kind of what you want your soil to do right here. You want it to hold together, but not juice. So now that the soil is perfectly moist, we're gonna go ahead and fill up our pots. If you're using solo cups for this process, don't forget to poke your holes in the bottom. All right, at this point, all you have left to do is actually plant the seed. So you wanna go ahead and make a tiny little hole right here, about 1.5 to 2 centimeters deep, nothing more than that. Doesn't have to be too aggressive, it doesn't have to be too large. Something light, the seed's gonna go in there. It's a very small seed. And with clean hands, gloves, or a tiny tool, you can go ahead and insert that. You wanna put the seed in there with the tip down and not too deep, not too pressured. Just lay it in there and go ahead and cover it up. Once the seed is in there and planted, all you have to do is slightly mist it just like this. You want to make sure that this gets a good amount of water. And then in order to maintain and retain that moisture, you're going to go ahead and bag over it. If you have a humidity dome works great for this. I have a humidity dome, but for the sake of this video, I'll be doing it like this. This is actually one of the ways that I prefer to do it. I feel like it keeps it really humid. Now maintenance for these is going to be the same as the other ones. You want to keep them in a dark place. These have to be checked regularly, at least 1 or 2 times a day, to make sure that the soil is going to stay moist and it doesn't dry out. At least once a day, I respray mine typically in the morning time and take the top off so they can breathe a little bit. The humidity has to stay relatively high for germination stage for cannabis. We're looking at 70 to 90%. So you do want to make sure that this is moist all the time. So like I said, a dark, warm environment until a seedling pops through the soil. You want to check for this daily, because as soon as the seedling is visible, as soon as you see green, you want to take this bag off of it and you want to give that access to light immediately. For this method, even though it's my favorite, it does have its downsides. Let's actually start with the cons. So the cons for this is that slower germination, it takes a little bit longer. I honestly can say that it's taken me, unlike a 2 days to 3 days that I can take in the paper towel, it takes 5 to 7 days to germinate like this. You can risk overwatering it if you're not careful, and it can be a little bit harder to monitor or to track because you can't see what the seed is doing underneath that soil. However, I still believe that the pros outweigh the cons in this scenario, at least for me anyways. That's mainly because it's consistent. I've had a consistent 100% germination rate using this method. I've tried other methods and this method just seems to work the best for me. Since the first time I tried this, it's been nothing but success, and I think it's just because this is the most natural way. This is indisputably the environment that the plant was evolved to thrive in. Not to mention, you don't risk infecting the roots because you never have to touch that taproot. Now that we know our 3 main germination methods, let me know in the comments which one of these you believe is most successful or which one you think is going to be more successful, and check back in for part 2 where we're actually going to go over the results. Remember that there's 1,000 ways to grow. I'm just showing you mine. If you do it differently, that's perfectly fine. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you feel so inclined, turn on your notifications so you don't miss part 2.